time to put the lower base together. The upper base is over there. So when you buy the RS Ultimate Gen 2, you get the moving bits, but you have to buy your own extruded aluminum material. And there's lots of places you can buy it, 8020, I believe, .net. This is 40 series. I don't think it'll work with the American non-metric series like my other rig is. The other parts will bolt to that, but I wanted to be sure. I didn't want to get halfway through and mess something up, so I went searching on Amazon. They were a little bit cheaper than 8020. The issue is pieces like the center one come with the appropriate cuts. This one is a 40-160 by 500. And you can find that on there, cut exactly that way. With some of these other pieces, such as the 4080, this one calls for a 830 millimeter one, and what I got was, I believe, 1100 on these. But in order to find a cut that was 830, it was almost twice as expensive as these. So if you have a compound miter saw, or a miter saw, it doesn't have to be compound, you can cut these yourself. They cut with either a metal blade or a very fine-toothed wood blade will cut through it too. It's smooth. And I still would put end caps on these things because they do tend to get a little burry and cut you up. But if you don't find the size you want, just buy a larger size, cut it down. I will tell you that these, the 4120s by 1100, these are 1220. And I'm not going to cut them down, or I may cut them down later, but I'm not going to cut them down right now. I'm just going to move these inboard a little bit so it matches the rest of the dimensions that are provided by our E-Racing Lab. And we'll see how that works. I don't see it being a problem, just looking at the engineering of it. As long as these plates are in place for the moving cups, the same thing with the uppers. That 4160 on the top and bottom is a little bit larger, a little bit longer than what's required. These are 930, what's required, those are 1100. I'm going to leave it that way as well. I don't run a standard track racer sim pit. My rig was kind of custom built by myself to some dimensions I felt comfortable with when I made it 6 years ago. So it's a little bit wider, and I wanted to have room for the cup spacing, or the four vertical actuators to be spaced on there and not have it real close to the edge. So we'll see how it goes. If at some point in the future it needs to be cut down, I don't think it would be. I can do that, but right now we're just going to take measurements off the end to make sure we're in the appropriate places and start assembling this. So as I said, you'll have to get your own extruded aluminum. You'll have to get many of your own brackets, although these come with brackets attached to it. This simply mounts in here, and I have brackets, I have corner brackets here, and if you buy these, they have these little nubs on the end that help it align in the channel and don't provide a lot of movement. And that works fine down here because both of these are in the same direction. But on something like that, it would work fine one way, but these burrs would make it stick out, and then you run into potential flex or movement in there. So you don't want to use these unless you want to grind off these little burrs or little nubs on the end that help align it inside that slot. You can do that, or you can get some other type ones. I'll show you those in a minute. So if you look in here, here's the two different types. And on the back, this one's smooth and flat. This one's smooth and flat. This one has nubs. So I would get a few of each. They're both pretty sturdy. But again, I'll use these on this system over here that I do later. These will be for this one. So I have this cut. I have these laid out. I'm going to go ahead and start assembling this. And I'm going to work from these outer pieces, take the measurements off, slide the T-nuts in, and then bolt it down. Once we get these end pieces done, I'll assemble this onto the center. I'll slide some T-nuts down just because it's easy while I have access to this. We'll start bolting the whole system together. And then we also have to get these pieces on as well. I'd rather get them on now when I can slide them in versus trying to find a way to get them in there. So beginning with this, we're looking at, these are 1100 millimeters. And this piece is, I believe, 1220 millimeters. 1220. So we're going to have 60 millimeters on either end. Yes, 60 millimeters on either end that we want these plates backed off from this end. And I've printed up some end caps. You can buy end caps for these. If you have a 3D printer, there's plenty of STL files out there. You can just go ahead and print them up and slap them on here. Some fit better than others. I've printed a few different types and some work great, some are less than great. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these plates off for a second. I still have some of the coverings, the wrappings that they put on there. First thing you want to do is grab a bag of these. These are the ones, these are provided as part of the kit. So these go, nothing goes in the middle, these all go on the outer edges. And these are, there's ball type and spring type. These are spring type. I kind of prefer the ball type, but these are provided with the kit. So in order to slide them in, you want to press that spring down, get them in there, and then they just slide on down. These do move around a little bit in the channel. They tend to kind of change direction on you and go a little sideways. And we want to see how these line up. So I'm going to go ahead and get these started on here, and then I will, once I get them started, I will move it so it's 60 millimeters from the edge, and then go ahead and tighten these down. These are the bolts that are provided. These other ones are for the internal stuff. If you are looking for the US or the imperial measurement ones of these, I usually buy those, like I built that with it, T-nuts. I think they're in New York. Pretty good pricing and fairly reasonable shipping, as long as you keep it below 96 inches. So we have to find we have to find 60 millimeters. That's 60 millimeters. That's 60 millimeters. That is still 60 millimeters. Good. That's going to take a larger one. Okay, that one side's on. I'm going to go ahead and continue around here, get all the plates on, and we'll show you what comes next. So we've got all these mounted, all four. They're all measured off 60 millimeters from the end. I am going to give them another little torque down as soon as I find my other wrench. But a couple tips on this. If you're sliding these things on here, make sure all your nuts are kind of outside the area of this plate, because it's easier to shove in than to either drag out, take apart, or slide this whole thing over. If you are leaving it long, I would just put a couple in, get your measurements off the edge, then set the rest of them, rather than getting them all in loose and trying to move this back and forth. A couple things I learned from putting it together. So that's set. The next step is going to be these 4.5 rails that the actuators are going to mount to, as well as the other pieces of this. So if you look at the actuators, they already have this mounting plate on the bottom that has a T-nut on it, and these are going to have to slide in on here. And there is a specific direction. If you're looking at the at this, you want the motor on the top, this being the top or the front, to be to the right side, and then the bottom motor to be to the left side. So in addition to that, there's a couple more mounting points on this. You have one for either side of this center. So you'll need 2 more T-nuts on here. You'll need one for the top, and then you'll need one for the bottom, as well as on the outside, one on each side. And it may be easier, like let's say for the outside, to go ahead and half assemble one, and then just slide it in. Almost put it on the wrong part, but if you go ahead and get this in, and I'm just snugging it down a little bit, just so it doesn't rattle all around while I'm trying to put the rest of this together. Same thing for the other side. Oddly, that one's missing a spring on it. Normally I put washers on these, but these come with a larger, flatter head spread out, so it doesn't appear to need one. I may need lock washers, but we're going to try it without it. So on this side, we've already got the outside pieces on. We want to put 2 pieces here on the bottom. That's together. This will go in like this. Now I need to get these lined up and slid in. That one's finally in there. Just needs to slide down a little bit. Should be able to get that one to go in as soon as I find it. And then put this end one in. This is where the ball springs come in a lot handier. They just go in a lot easier. You don't have to worry about it. So move this back over here. Everything out of the way. And then we're going to have to take some measurements here. So we'll get some measurements going, line everything up. Measurements are on the instruction sheet that comes with it. Just so you know, these motors from the ends need to be 70 millimeters, and from the middle block needs to be 85 millimeters, or excuse me, 115 millimeters. And same thing, 115 from here, 70 from there. So we'll get those put on, lined up, get some nuts in here, and we'll start showing you how it goes together. We've got it almost all together. Putting that last screw in here. As soon as I get this in, the bottom will be done. And we can move on to the next layer. There's a few things make this life just a little bit easier as you go along. And I'll point those out here in a second. I'll tighten these down. This wasn't bad, it was fairly easy to put together. Because I had not cut these, there's some overhang here. And I had to do a little bit of measuring when I set this up. Let's see, between the actuator motors and the top you have a 70 millimeter clearance. Between the actuator motors in the center, it's 115 millimeter clearance. And we're putting this on, it's 85 per side. And these again have they come with the T-nuts attached to it, but like these, these are upside down, so I had to pull it off. And in fact, it's probably easier to go ahead and pull it off. I went ahead and put on all these brackets loosely, just tight enough that they wouldn't move anywhere. And then I mounted this on there, mounted the last one on, set it down, got it all tightened up, measured out. It worked out pretty well. The one thing I will say is when you're tightening the ends, when you're screwing the ends in, there's a lot of pressure off of these that make a little bit of bend in the aluminum extrusion. So you want to watch out for that. I was putting some pressure back just so it would work out a little bit easier. I wouldn't have any loose spots. Or you can also kind of move it and get it mounted up against this lip, and it'll hold it up too and keep it from twisting. The end ones are fairly easy to put in. You saw the beginning of that. The rest of them just as easy. So everything's in and tightened up. I'm going to start working on the top portion next. I have to look at a few things because it goes into these brackets here, and there's a shim plate down there that I'm trying to understand exactly how this goes so that I don't mess anything up. But I think the shim plate goes against the beam where it crosses the motor, just so there's no rub against the motor. Same thing on that side. So we're gonna put those long beams in and try and fit it up. The other thing I want to do is get the cups that right on this, on the bottom of those upper and lower pieces. And then I'll wait to put the cups on top because I have to measure out how it's going to go against my sim rig, exactly where I'm going to mount that out at. And I'll probably try and tackle that tomorrow or the next day. I do want to change out the rudder plate before I do that, just because I'm going to be working in that area and it's a little hard to do it later. But overall, really easy build. Just a lot of tightening of bolts and a little bit of measuring. Anybody can do this. I'm going to straighten this up tonight and get it to where I think it needs to be centered in this area so I can still get TVs and such around it. But everything's looking good. So next up is that piece. I'm going to be building the top layer today. So a couple things to note. I kept these are supposed to be 930 millimeters. I kept them at 1,000, the original size that I bought, because it was cheaper. I'm going to leave them that way, and you have to look at the dimensions on here. So it's 175. I mean, we can post this up when the video shoot is posted. It's 175 millimeters from the edge of this to the edge of this. But considering I have 70 more millimeters, that's 35 more per side. So this will be 210 measurement that I need to make here in order to mount this. And you want to make sure this is squared up, so we'll work on that as well. And in addition, instead of using the corners that have the little notches and tabs in them that lock it, that would only work down here, it wouldn't work here. So we're using these, which are plenty sturdy. On the outside, I'm using these double ones on the inside. So don't need to measure this yet. What we need to do is get some of these in here. Now these type, I've switched over from another build I had. These are the ball type ones. I can show you the difference between these two. The spring ones work. I just prefer these with the ball. They seem to stay in there better and don't pop out. So if you had a choice, these are probably better. You can get these at Amazon fairly cheaply, but these work just as well. So these can slide on here. We're going to go ahead and measure it off 210. Okay, we're having a little issue getting these to go in, and this channel is made slightly different. If you look at the end, It has a much deeper profile. All these channels were bought from basically different suppliers, and with this deeper profile, the nut tends to drop in farther and it's harder to pick up with the bolt or the screw. So what we did is put all these on first, loosely, and we'll go ahead and get them bolted down to the frame here, and then adjust as needed until we get it square. Just like that. Get 210 here. And we'll put a measuring square on this after we've got it assembled before we torque everything down. So I'm just getting it tight enough so it won't move around on me. And then we'll take care of the rest of this later. And again, 210, 210, 210. Go ahead and move on to this other side. So if you're going to be putting this together, it might be helpful to go ahead and put your brackets on this post first, and then when you're laying it down here, you don't have any issues. It's always good to have it on one side or the other. That way the rest of it goes a little bit quicker and it's easier to assemble. So we're going to go ahead and continue bolting all this together. We'll come back, show you squaring it up and tightening it down. And then we have to work on putting the slide pucks on the bottom, which are over there. And then we have to take a little time to put the actuators on the frame itself, because we have to make sure we get proper line up to these areas with the bottom cups. Okay, we got done assembling it. It's tight but not torqued down. Just want to go around and check square on all the corners. Shockingly, maybe a millimeter, not even a millimeter, a little fraction there, but everything else is lining up good. So we're going to go ahead and tighten all these down, because with the amount of movement in this chassis, we don't want it flexing. Certainly not while we have the VR on and come flying out of it. Okay, we're all torqued down. Now it's time to flip this over and put on these slider cups on the bottom. Spacing on these is 165 millimeters from the edge to the center, but as we added 35 millimeters with this piece, we're going to end up putting this 200 even. So we're going to flip it over, come back, show you how we're going to install these things. We're making some progress here. So next step in the process, we flipped it over. This is the bottom side. These are the slider cups that ride along here, and they need to be, in this kit, normally 165 millimeters from the edge to the center. These are going to be 200 by the way this is designed. So it has to be to the outermost part. So these outer 3 tracks are the 4 that are available, which means you're going to need 2 of these clips in the center, and then 1 on the outside and 1 on the next one in. Line it up, drop it in, get it started. Well, try to get it started. This one doesn't want to start. Okay, we'll go ahead and pull it off. A little bit off center there. And then with our tape measure, measure to 200. Right there. 200, go ahead and tighten it down. We'll get the bit and the drill and torque these down a lot better, but this is good for now. Yeah, we'll have to do that with a bit. So we'll continue over here on this other side. Kind of centered here. It makes it a whole lot easier. When you lay it on here, they should both be in line. Nothing really difficult about building this except making sure your measurements are correct. And it takes a lot of time. There's a lot of fasteners and such to put in here, so give yourself a good weekend or a little better to get this together. I can already see from the other side it's going to have to go over. We're at 200 right there. Go ahead and tighten these down. We'll go ahead and wrap up these other two and then take some T-nuts and bolts out of there, and we're going to flip this over just to set it on there and make sure everything's lining up correctly, and then we can move on to the next process. So now we got all the sliding pucks on and tightened down. We're going to flip this over and temporarily set it on there to make some alignment adjustments, as well as to put some plates on that are over there. They're rub plates, I guess, for these motors, so you're not wearing down the fins or putting pressure on those motors. So we'll go ahead and flip this over. There is no front or back to this, so either way you do it is fine. By the way, the interior measurement of this, I told you the exterior. The interior measurement is 420. So we've got the upper platform mounted to the lower platform. Still trying to adjust center on this. But before I get too far into it, bolt to get down to play with sliding these actuators in and out, I wanted to mark off where it crosses the motor, because I have to flip this back over and install these plates. And these plates will be like rub plates for the motor area. So I'm going to flip this over, install those, come back, and then we're going to take a look at sliding, adjusting these actuators in and out a little bit. One thing you will want to do is hook this up, reset the Thanos. Comes with the instructions on how to reset it, but it's simple. It's left arrow and the reset button over here, let go of it. And then you want to make sure that you're set up to the correct thing. So if you have this one, there's 3 possible setups. And this one seems to be setup number 1, which is 4 actuators at 150, 3 actuators at 100, and it automatically sets these actuators to be at a 50% where they sit, so that obviously it has half travel in either direction. So do that before you set it up. That's what I was running into before, because these were completely retracted for shipping purposes. Obviously it saves space, but it wasn't allowing this to line up. And so we figured that out. We're moving along. We'll get these plates attached, come back, and then show you some of the adjustments we're making on this in order to get this thing moving. And then maybe run a little test with just the traction loss first, and then move on to the surge next. So these little kind of phenolic or plastic, these go across the bar where the motors will be, as sort of a rub plate, and pretty easy to install, just like everything else. Bunch of nuts. That in there, and the tape on here is to mark with the areas where I needed this to cover. You can measure it out. I just used the tape since I already had it turned over. This one's gonna be a bit fun. Got canked up in there. Just a note on these, there's one short in the bag. Actually the bag had enough, but it had a tiny version of this, not the correct threads, so luckily I had some of these lying around. So I didn't have to wait around to order any. That's all done. We can roll this back over onto the other frame. It's kind of getting exciting as we get closer to the final part of the build. I'm really looking forward to getting some flight time in on this. So these actuators, the stop position or the rest position is 50%. So this is supposed to be 300 millimeters from the end. From the end of this to the bracket is supposed to be 300 millimeters. And we are just ever so slightly off. One on that side. We'll go to the other side and put one on. Again, we want to be at 300 millimeters. And we're not quite there. That's 300 there. Test it out here. Well, that's a problem. Definitely a problem. So it looks like we need to make a few adjustments. I can see where this is center inner and this is edge. So we'll make a few tweaks to this, come back and give it another go. I got the traction loss and the surge all together, and it took a lot of tinkering around to get this exactly set up the way I needed to. Some human error, some just trying to understand the geometry and the dimensions of it. If you measure off the 300, sometimes it moves the whole thing forward or back. It was a little bit challenging. And the human error came in every time I reset this, it would go back to 150 millimeter stroke on here instead of 100. So it was bouncing off the nuts and I couldn't figure out what was going on. But it's working now. So pretty happy with it. I think next thing I'm going to do is take a long break, but I'm going to start putting the actuators on the sim pit. Okay, we're getting near the end here. I do have the actuators on the back. I needed that to lift it up to get it on this on the lower frame. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you installing the actuators on the front ones. The spacing on these is going to be 10 millimeters to the center. And so I need this cup on here first. I'm going to go ahead and install some of these nuts in here. Four in here. Go ahead and line the cup up. Get a couple of these started. Instructions say put these cups forward and the slider cups back for whatever reason. I do know from a friend of mine has another system, different brand, and you know, the closer you get these actuators together, the more motion you seem to get out of them. Unfortunately or fortunately, you're limited on this. Only a couple positions you can really use, so I'm sure it'll be fine. And it's amazing how we went from to VR to motion to force feedback. It's just makes flying and driving a much more incredible experience. So we got that centered at 10. I'm going to go ahead and tighten these down. Well, this one seemed to have skipped. Right there. We'll tighten this back one down once we get the everything set up with the actuators. So the next thing we want to do is install these actuators. I'm going to put the ball on here just in case we're at that level, and we are. Of course, this one I'm going to have to lift up and okay, the actuator is on. Just have to drop a few slot nuts in there. Line them up, put some screws on this particular one. I'm just going to put the top two on first, and I'll worry about the bottom ones once I can lift this up a little bit higher. I do want to. This was originally made, my design, to be able to have it a little higher off the floor. And won't be needing these corners anymore. We'll brace it with a plate just so this thing stays square with all the motion. Obviously you won't have to do any of this if you have a track racer or whatever it is you happen to be using. Try the BFH. Here we go. When all else fails, the BFH always works. Not quite lined up. Alright, it's on, cup's on, actuator's on. I'll tighten up these bolts, put the bottom ones in as soon as I can lift that, and I'll probably show you that portion. I'll wire it up over here and we'll get this thing going. I'm excited to get it set up, but I have a lot of cleanup work on the sim itself, as it's been modified over 6 years, and I want to make some more changes to it so it works a little bit better. One thing I did notice on this, point out now, is when this is in its lowest position, this is very close, the bottom one is very close to the surge actuator, and the issue is I used to bottom mount my force feedback stick, so I'm going to have to find a different way to do that, potentially raising the seat another inch or so, and then putting it mounted to this versus being one under. We'll check that all out. That'll be in a different video. Also, the rudder pedal mount, I'll show you that in a different video as well. So we'll do the other side, come back and show you how it all gets put together, and a little bit of a test run, and that'll be it for the build. Okay, so this is it for the build. I try to show you parts of the build that were relevant. I mean, obviously, putting on one of these actuators is the same in all the corners, so I didn't want to go through and have a 4-hour video of each T-nut going in there. I hope I covered enough for you if you're going to build this yourself, or maybe it helps you decide whether you want to build one of these. There are some other videos out there from other creators on full builds, multi-part videos. They all seem to be going from a Gen 1 to a Gen 2, which is a little different down here in how the traction loss and surge works. But they're good videos, so if you want something more in depth, I think they show you every nut they put on it, if you like that kind of video. Got a couple of things that I wanted to point out. One of the things that made it easier is like all of these brackets on here, getting those on first. Made it a lot easier, and I could slide 4 or 5 on, slap it on there, screw it down, and it made it go a lot faster. Have plenty of T-nuts and the bolts, or T-bolts if you choose to use those. I ran out of what they sent, and that's, I didn't use anything they sent to build the frame, because you have to provide the frame yourself. But I think I got shorted a few nuts. Not a big deal. I have lots of them here from putting this together and changes over the years, but I would always have more. You'll definitely find it useful as you continue to create and build on whatever sim rig you put together. There's always changes. One thing big, make sure on the traction loss actuators, you plug those in, wire them up, and calibrate them. They ship in a stored position at a 0, and you can't put the frame on with that. And I didn't quite get it at first. It was a little frustrating. Once I figured it out, everything went a lot smoother. The frame, the traction loss is a lot of geometry, so you want to have that squared, you want to have that even on your base. It does take a little bit of time, but it's well worth it in the end. It's not something that's going to take you 4 hours, but just plan correctly, get it on there correctly, leave everything loose so it can slide around, and you'll be good to go. Oh yeah, make sure when you do calibrate it that you've set the Thanos controller to, there's 3 different types of rigs on there for E-Racing Lab, and you want to set it to number 1, which is a 7 actuator. It puts these at 150, and it puts the lower ones at 100. When I first started to do it, I shut off the rig and reset it, and when it came back up, they were at 150, and they were moving so far they were jumping the track, and it caused a little bit of confusion there as well. So I hope that saved you if you're putting one of these together. On the T-slot, you know, they provide the actuators and all the attaching hardware for that, and the bits that are needed, like the center support and such. You will need to provide your own frame material, and obviously you need to provide your own sim. So shop around, there's cheaper places to get it. I mean, obviously you can go to 8020.net. Amazon sells it, I bought a lot of this there. I did mention these are longer than what's in the build plan. It doesn't hurt it. So if you don't want to cut it, there's only 2 cuts that I found you need to make, and that's for the center 4080s on the lower part of the platform. But you can use 1000 where it says 930, and it doesn't hurt anything, except it makes the rig a little bit wider. Let's see what else. I don't know about using, this is all 40 series, or I don't know about using the American series from like T-Nuts, the 15. My rig is built out of 15, and certainly it bolts to it no problem. That's not an issue. I don't know if you can build a lower one using it. Quite possibly you can, because I have brackets that fit either one. But I didn't want to take a chance, and I needed new stuff anyway. So I'll continue on as I'm putting the sim together. I've got to make some changes to the seat, how the force feedback joystick mounts. I've changed my pedal deck around. I used to use a piece of wood, and I built a pedal deck. I'll show you a special video on that and setting that up. But this will come together over the next few weeks. I do want to take the TVs and put them on, they're 70-inch TVs. I want to put them on a T-slot frame around here, so they're not on these rolling carts, because the rolling cart won't even fit in front of this the way it is. I want to bring them in closer so you have a really good view. I don't use them all the time. In fact, I use a lot of the Pimax headsets. I was using the Crystal Light. I just recently got the Super Ultra Wide. On joysticks, I'm using the Rhino, both for the joystick and a Rhino converted wing rudder pedals. I also have the FF Beast and FF Beast rudder pedals. I don't think that'll work on this, so maybe we'll save that for another build, or maybe we'll sell it and let somebody else enjoy it. We'll see what happens there. So this is the RS Ultimate Gen 2. It's by eRacing Labs. I'll put a link below. I got no discount. I paid for this with my own money. They do offer discounts if you're ordering one. They'll offer 5% if you do a bank transfer. I didn't choose that method. They told me, I believe it was, I think it's 5-6 weeks to ship at the time I ordered. I saw recently it's down to 1 week. But shipping took less time than they estimated. It did come in 7 boxes. I think 3 boxes came FedEx early, and then 4 more boxes came UPS. The FedEx boxes incurred no tariffs. They came out of Texas. I did get hit with $242 in tariffs, which is not bad on something that cost $5,000, and that was on the UPS delivery. So there are some others like this one. There's a couple of, I don't think it's a copy, everybody kind of uses the same design. The other one just recently released their traction loss system, and it's amazing. The traction loss system costs as much as this full setup. And their setup is more expensive than this for the 4 actuators. So value-wise, I think eRacing Labs kills it. It looks like a quality bit of kit here. I didn't see any defects, didn't see any problems putting it together. It's well worth it. So we're going to enjoy this, and we'll shoot some more videos on it. I will have a full setup video as we dial it in. I'm going to use SimHub. We'll dial in on SimHub. I'll show you all that, the settings that I use, so that you can use that too. But if you enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up. If you have some comments you didn't enjoy, leave a comment below. If you have some questions, also leave a comment. I'll respond to those as well. So I appreciate you sticking around. This is a bit of a longer video, but I thank you for the effort, and we'll see you next time.